Hey everyone, Sari here, and welcome back to another week of Astra Season Offense matches. I was looking forward to testing a couple of teams this week, and was especially interested to see Dimitri taking Vital Astra into AR. Having an extra layer of damage reduction available from his special makes him extremely hard to knock out, allowing him to rely on Mystic Boost as his only source of self-healing. Time's Pulse is an excellent way to make sure he has it available every turn, either to pick off a key target in the player phase or weather the storm in the enemy phase. While he isn't able to keep Vital Astra charged from one combat to the next as consistently as Ascended Merida can, that doesn't stop it from being effective. The first combat he takes, which should be the one with Vital Astra online, is usually the most threatening one, so losing a layer of damage reduction for the following combats doesn't normally bother him. It also offers him an absurd amount of damage that, combined with Atrocity, lets him demolish his opponents in a single round of combat. Attack speed ideal as his A-slot gives Dimitri a lot of flexibility with positioning. While it's rare to get the maximum values for multiple combats, being able to guarantee the 7 attack and speed regardless of his position on the field is really useful. Unity would be another nice fit for this slot, and is something I'm planning to give him eventually. Fjorm, as usual, is an excellent far-safe bodyguard for a melee specialist. Deflect Magic is a really useful alternative to Mystic Boost for her, especially with Duo Corrin being a much more available unit after this year's Hero Rises. The Mythics, as usual, are tailored for support. Thor wound up getting fully merged thanks to some great results from the Hero Rises banner, and offering breath support to Fjorm and Dimitri lets them both shrug off guard effects. Ashera's Null Panic is always useful, and combined with Elemine and a speed tactic, provides a full spectrum of buffs to the team. Elemine's False Start continues to be absurdly useful, and the extra layer of damage reduction she provides makes it difficult for anything to get damage to stick. There were a couple of matches at the start of the week that went to different teams, including an underdevelopment Galeforce squad. Thor's Worldbreaker makes her a great unit to build a Galeforce team around, and I decided to try using a Guidance Seal to make her a slightly less flexible Ash. Unity also gives Thor the option to adjust her damage output a bit to help avoid one-shotting her opponents. Dimitri got to tag along on this team too, bringing an extremely high damage output kit to the field. This does make him an excellent wall breaker, but it also runs the risk of being overkill when he just one-shots whatever he's pointed at. Byleth, meanwhile, is a pretty flexible and consistent Galeforcer thanks to Creator Sword's tempo and null follow-up, and Windsweep gives her a lot of options for safe combats. I also got to give Ashera one match to carry in her bonus week. Having Thor and Elemine as support options does a lot for her, giving her access to instant noontime attacks, while also offsetting her low defense stat. I'd like to give her Distant Defense 4 for this build at some point, since the extra attack from Ideal is usually overkill. I do got to be her near-safe bodyguard, bringing her speed-focused kit back to the field. Even without bonus week stats, she still has more than enough speed to make Savvy Fighter a great skill for her. Having Ashera be the ranged half of the combat squad also gives the team room to fit an extra support in, and I decided on Yuri for trap-breaking utility and extra movement options. Now that we've gone over the teams, let's get to the first match. This match will be a fun way to start the week. It actually lets me debut the Galeforce squad I put together for this week, and I'll admit it actually took me a lot longer than it probably needed to plan this one out. Mostly just because, unfortunately, my Galeforcers either hit too hard and one-shot their targets, or don't hit hard enough and can't finish things off in one round, in the case of Byleth, which is quite annoying. But also kind of impressive when I'm looking at Dimitri and realizing he can one-shot this bonus week Seiros. They do have a pretty neat team here. There's a lot of mobility options thanks to the ground orders from Mirabilis and Catria in general, and the 2 rallies and 3 dancers make it very hard to isolate this, though it might be a little bit weak to false start. If you false start Catria, it takes a lot of bite out of this team, and a solid red ranged tank, or even a blue that can handle Thracier, should be able to punch through this pretty easily. I decided to go with a different approach here though, and assuming I figured this out correctly, it should be a fun match. Since their threat range doesn't extend here, and they don't snipe our safety fence, we're just going to take this first turn to open things up a little bit.
They will submit. Your orders.
And move into position to get things started next turn.
I'll comply.
From here, we'll get things started by repositioning Thor forwards and smiting Dimitri. And we'll dance Byleth and start knocking things out, starting with Mirabilis, who is just bulky enough to survive Thor's first hit. And that is going to let Byleth jump up here and attack into Seiros without knocking her out. It's a little unfortunate that we do it like this, but it does mean that we get Wings of Mercy enabled for Azura. And Dimitri is just going to move on in and one-shot 3-0. While Thor moves up and finishes off Seiros. Then we'll have Azura warp in and dance Dimitri.
What now?
Before Byleth moves here and wind sweeps Catria for a knockout. And then Dimitri is going to move here specifically to one-shot the Leaf as well. Part of what made planning this so awkward was trying to make sure that he would actually have Thor's buff for the combat with Leaf.
Yes.
And then we'll close things out by knocking out Sigurd. And with Dorothea stuck in place, she can only attack Thor, and Thor's bulky enough to survive one round of combat with her. It comes pretty close, thanks to that Dark Shrine, but she can manage it. And then we can just pick up the Aether Pots
Your orders.
and let Byleth close out the match. This match will be a neat one. It's a bit odd to see a defense with no mythics, but they still got quite a bit of punch on this team to try and crack open an enemy far save unit. This plus 10 Klein's very neat to see. He was actually my first 5-star archer, and it's nice to see him at this level of investment. Backing him up with Micaiah is fun, and Byleth too. Micaiah, Byleth, and Lysithea also provide a really nice 1-2-3 punch of magic damage, and with 2 Azuras, it's fairly likely for all 4 of them to get in on a target in one turn. On the other hand, there aren't any rally traps of any sort here, so it's not too hard to just bait both of the Azuras out into the same tile right here, while staying out of Micaiah's range and clearing out most of the major threats at once. As long as you can survive the barrage of Byleth, Klein, and Lysithea, but that is what we are expecting to do here. It should be pretty easy to just start this off immediately. We'll have Elamine move forwards, and a fully buffed Ashera move in too, with Thor standing behind her. And then we'll let Idun
Where to, friend?
and Yuri start breaking their way towards this Aether Pot up in the top left.
I'll do it.
Klein will hit pretty hard, but it's not hard enough to actually knock Ashera out,
Don't waste your energy.
and she heals most of the damage right back. I think Lysithea should move in next, since, yeah, we won't actually get to heal from this combat, since the colorless feud turns off the Thor and Elamine support. But it's not like Lysithea can get a lot of damage done here. And while Byleth can turn off the damage reduction that she gets from Elamine, it's still not enough
Perished, flawed one.
to let him outdamage the Noontime. And then the Azuras will both move in and heal Ashera back to full health.
Simply an end.
I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Harmonic Azuras on defenses these days.
Simply an end.
She's actually really useful, I think, as a dancer on a defense, as long as you avoid her getting baited out. Sadly from here, I don't think we can quite reach this Aether pot this turn, so we're just going to have to avoid Micaiah.
I'm going now.
Or bait her
I
maybe
won't
with Thor,
disappoint.
while Yuri works his way up towards this pot.
I am the
Asher
answer.
can pick up this one.
I
We'll just
seek a
move
foe.
Thor up here,
Close your eyes.
add some extra debuffs onto Micaiah, and let Thor stall for a turn. Micaiah shouldn't really threaten her here. She's got a lot of res, and, well, with Plumeria and Elemine support, it's not so hard for her to survive that. And then
This'll
we'll
be
just let
fun.
Yuri pick up the pot,
There
and
is
have
but
Ashera close
one
out the
future.
match.
Fool!
Sorry, Micaiah. This time Ashera wins.
Accept it.
Oh,
Don't waste your energy.
well, 0 damage Iceberg to close things out. Was a fun match. This match will be an interesting one. It's another match with a Catria and Duo Leaf. This one's using Blade Session, which is an interesting tech choice and helps him punch through any follow-up denial that his opponents might be running. We're also using a Slaying Hammer, Odor. It does hurt a bit to see a recently released preferred weapon replaced with the basic Slaying Hammer, but it definitely does the job as long as he's just trying to one-shot whatever he hits. Wings of Mercy is a nice way to help him actually get onto his targets too, especially with potentially Leaf helping his allies get into Wings of Mercy range. And this Mirabilis can take advantage of the same thing. The drive attacks from her and from this Catria can also really add up if Catria's triangle attacks are in play, adding up to 18 extra damage per swing, which is quite a lot for any tank to try and survive. We also have a neat little Sigurd here with a Raven Tome and Triangle Adept and Ruse. And I think what the trap is supposed to be is Sigurd dances Catria and then gets rallied by Leaf, which ruses everything in these two columns, and then Mirabilis dances Leaf and everything goes haywire. All of this really does hinge on Catria though, and, well, with Elemine in the picture, Catria is not as reliable as she used to be in Astra Seasons. And we are actually planning to false start this Catria. Sadly, it's a little bit too much for Fjorm to tank the triangle attack Cron after tanking the triangle attack Leaf, so we'll just have to not style quite as hard on this. I am going to let Odor keep his Brutal Shell though. Dimitri can get a little bit of fun.
There is but one future.
We'll just start opening up this front
I
line
seek
and
a
take the
foe.
first turn to set up.
Your orders.
Close your eyes.
I will go.
We don't have to worry about their turn 1, thanks to the safety fence. And from here, we should be able to
I'll
start moving
comply.
into position. I'm actually only going to move Dimitri forward 1 space here since Elemine got gravitied. And that should let her nudge him forwards 1 more space. And clearly I don't have as much experience as I should using Fart Trace, since it doesn't actually let Elemine beat the gravity effect and move up into position here. But that's
I'll
okay,
do it.
because we do still have a dance.
I am the
That
answer.
lets Ashera move up here to break this infantry school.
Speak.
Then we'll nudge her out of the way. And then wait in place since the
By
Kento
your
kicked in
will.
when we didn't need it. Move Thor up here,
Lady Niffle.
and move Fjorm in behind us to keep us safe from the range. The first thing that should happen here is that Sigurd moves forward to dance, and then I think Oda will move in to attack Dimitri.
For Fafnir.
The Brutal Shell will let him do some damage here, but it shouldn't be enough to
We will not lose.
actually threaten Dimitri, who can just turn around and one-shot Oda for his trouble. And then Leaf can move in and swing once. But Fjorm blunts that down to a manageable level and one-shots him for his trouble. Chrom can do effective damage, but it's just not enough to punch through that Ice Mirror. Not without the triangle advantage of his duo version. And then nothing else reaches us. And it does mean we're going to need to take a slightly unorthodox approach to handling the rest of this.
Speak.
We're going to start just by nudging Dimitri forwards onto this bolt trap. Oh, and it's fake. That makes life much easier. She can canto forwards here and we'll dance her. Dimitri can then actually knock out Catria.
On my honor.
He gets to tank the Moonbow on the counterattack, thanks to guard bearing,
Love.
but it doesn't do too much damage, and, well, he can just finish her off there. And then we get to finish topping him back off, and nudge him forward in front of Fjorm. And as long as we keep him out of range of our Fjorm, Sigurd should always attack Dimitri, since he won't kill her, the Sigurd,
They will
which means that
submit.
we can just have Thor move up,
Yes? I'll
have
protect you.
Fjorm move up as well to keep everybody safe from
Yes,
Sigurd,
there
and
is
then
but
have
one
Ashera break
future.
this pot because may as well. First thing that should happen is, yep, Sigurd attacks and very helpfully recharges Vital Astra. Just in time for Fjorm to come in and attack us. Oh, or Mirabilis will. What a shame.
On my honor.
It's not a bad thing though, Fjorm really shouldn't be able to do much to Dimitri even without Vital Astra charged. Oh, or anything, rather.
Don't let them retreat.
I expected her to do some damage, but I guess without the extra bonuses Mirabilis was providing, it just wasn't enough.
I
And
will
then
go.
from there it's very easy for L9 to float over and pick up the second Aether pot.
Yes.
While we let Dimitri close out the match.
On my honor.
That was a fun one. Let's see what we get next. This match is going to be a pretty basic one. They've got a couple of very highly invested units on their team with this maxed out Marth and a maxed out Norn beside her. Seeing these two at this level of investment is great, which is why it's a little unfortunate that neither of them are using Anima Blessings to benefit from this Seiros. It does hold the team back, and the rest of the team isn't using Anima Blessings either. So the only one who's actually helping to mitigate their lift loss is this in-season Azura, who is actually using her remixed kit, which is a switch from the other Azuras I've seen on defenses so far. It is a bit of a shame though to see this. I hope they didn't just forget to lock the right blessings in place before giving everybody their offense blessings, and hopefully they're already locked out for the day too, because that, and also this fortress being a level down, is going to make this a pretty easy match. I'm going to take a turn just to set up and clear out some of these
I will
structures.
go.
That is the real trap. Kind of expected that.
I'll do it.
That's fine. We'll just have her break it for real this time and canto over to test this one. It's the other real trap.
They will
And Thor can
submit.
reposition her down.
Yes.
And we'll just have Dimitri,
Yes.
Ashera,
Lady
Fjorm,
Niffle.
move over. And then
I'll
from here we'll
comply.
just have Dimitri break through these structures.
Why
and
not?
actually, changed my plan here. We're just going to let Dimitri
Your
solo
orders.
this map without Fjorm's help.
By your will.
We'll just do that by moving him here, and he can handle most of the team. These two won't get involved since they're boxed in.
There is but one
Ashera can move
future.
over here, and
Yes.
we'll start moving Elamine over this way. I can't quite get Elamine in range here, unfortunately, but it shouldn't matter. Erica's not surviving Dimitri here, even with the Menace
It's
online,
our chance to prevail.
and she can't out-heal the Mystic Boost, which means that Mirth moves in next and does no damage at all.
Don't let them retreat.
And I think we'll get a dance here. Oh, no, never mind, Azura just attacked. I wasn't sure she'd actually get to attack here, but that's fun to see. And then she gets repositioned out of the way.
I
And
am
from
the
there we can
answer.
just break the statue,
I'll
and
comply.
let Dimitri break through Norn.
It's our chance to prevail.
And
Close
then
your
we'll advance him
eyes.
forward
Yes.
to take out the second pesky ranged unit. And he should have a pretty comfortable time enemy phasing Seiros here.
I'll
And
protect
we'll
you.
just continue
I will
swapping
go.
Elamine around, clear out some structures,
seek a
and
foe.
move a little further forward. Seiros can do some damage here, but she's just not quite able to do enough.
Don't let them retreat.
Especially not when Dimitri can one-shot her pretty easily. And then from here we can just move in
I'll
and
comply.
have him handle Fjorm.
We will not lose.
Yes.
We'll just move everybody a little further
I'll do
forward
it.
to give
There
him
is but one future.
all of the buffs
They
he'll need
will
to deal
submit.
with
Lady
Edelgard
Niffle.
next turn.
Your
Then
orders.
we'll just have Dimitri move
Close
on
your
in,
eyes.
I'll
break
comply.
this structure, and get ready to
Speak.
enemy phase through Edelgard next turn. We're not actually going
Yes.
to get Elamine in range of him here, since
I seek a foe.
having the extra breath from Thor is more important than the last
Yes?
layer of damage reduction. So I'll just say go. Edelgard moves in, but she really can't do much damage
On my
through
honor.
this Vital Astra. And Dimitri just gets to one-shot her. That's a fun one. This match ended up being a bit of an awkward one. They've got a pretty solid Catria ball set up here with an in-season Legendary Seeker, pre-charging his Holy Knight Aura, using some rally traps and dance traps to help the entire team move forward and have access to triangle attacks for their primary damage sources. It's a nicely set up team. It is a little bit vulnerable in Astra Seasons thanks to Elamine now, but I decided to deliberately avoid using Elamine to disarm any of this, and have some fun by styling on it. That didn't end up being the reason we lose this, though, and Fjorm ends up being able to tank her way through Leaf, while Dimitri handles Sigurd without any real problems. And Corin can't quite break through Fjorm after that. This first turn went pretty well, and unfortunately I messed up slightly on the follow-up. We do end up getting Dimitri to knock out Seiros here without having any real problems, but moving Thor over ended up being overkill, and we didn't need that extra damage to knock out Seiros. If I'd used Thor to reposition Plumeria here to the left instead, we would have been able to take this match without losing anybody, since after Azura moves forward and gets baited into attacking Dimitri, Catria can move in and knock out Plumeria. And, well, after a bit of a revenge knockout on Catria, we surrender the match and move on. This map will be an interesting one. I haven't actually seen a New Year's Reagan on a defense at all, which is a little surprising. I do think she's very strong with a Canto 2 on a ranged cavalry unit, and of course a pre-charged Seether Shell. One of the fun things about Reagan is that she actually gets to recharge this special on turn 4, which can definitely catch people off guard if they're expecting it to stay offline after, let's say, disabling it with Elamine. And Fafnir is also someone I haven't seen on a defense either. It's a little odd to keep Disarm Trap on him since it doesn't really do him any good on a defense team, but his weapon's built-in guard effect is very good at letting him survive and disarm any enemy Fjorms that the team runs into. And rounding that spectrum of colors out with a duo dagger provides the team with Pathfinder and a pretty solid heavy-hitting green, with Lysithea just as a backup colorless to follow through on whoever has the best combat of the three. It's a pretty solid set of offense units, and backing those up with 3 mythics to boost their stats just makes them that much harder to deal with. That said, I don't think Dimitri's going to have any issues here. We should, or Fjorm either. We should be able to just start cleaning things out on turn 1. It's actually very straightforward. We're just going to move everybody into place.
I will go.
By your will.
And then say go. I'm not too worried about Plumeria's sabotage here, since the only thing Dimitri has to worry about tanking is Seiros, and Seiros isn't hitting his defense stat anyway. She does go first, because she can do a chunk of damage to him before getting wiped out by Vital Astra. And unfortunately for her, that damage barely gets a chance to stick. Fafnir can also do some visible damage to Fjorm, but he doesn't actually get to out-heal her post-combat healing, or damage her post-combat healing. And even with the dagger debuff applied, Lysithea and company are just not going to have a good time with this fight. Oh, there goes Dagger, who might be able to get some damage to stick here. Oh, never mind. There's a little bit too much damage reduction going on here.
To another great year.
And the triangle disadvantage means that even with the adaptive damage, Reagan's not getting anything done here. And then Duma can't reach us, and the 7th slot Mirabilis means that he has no chance of catching up. That did go really well, and now we just want to pick these ether pots up while letting Dimitri handle Duma and Mirabilis. We'll let him handle Duma and test this heavy trap in the meantime. Move Elamine over that way, with Thor over here.
Lady Niffle.
And we'll let Fjorm
There is
swap
but one
Ashera
future.
over to let her start working her way up towards this ether pot.
Oh, I'll do it.
Then Dancer,
I am the
and
answer.
move her over a little bit more. Nope, not there. We don't want her getting hit by Duma after all. And, well, Duma's not going to have a good time with this fight.
It's our chance to prevail. They
And
will
since we did
submit.
find the real gravity trap last turn, we can
Yes.
just have Ashera move up here and pick up the ether pot. Let Elamine grab the second one,
I'll comply.
and have Dimitri move in to close out the match.
It's our chance to prevail.
Nice and clean. Let's see what we get next. This match is going to be a fun one. They've got a pretty dangerous setup here, mostly just thanks to the layout of these traps, and the combination of a rally trap from Erica with this Winter Lysithea, and 2 different safe armors to help avoid any hit and run approaches. This Arden is very, very close to being maxed out. It's nearly there. And the Hector's not a slouch either. He's very solid and really hasn't fallen off too much, even with all of the barrage of green anti-Hector threats that have been introduced over the last year. he can still do quite a lot of work. And then they've also got 3 mythics boosting their stats with Seiros and Mirabilis, and a Thrace here in the corner. They're also using quite a few visible buffs with these tactics, which really help bolster Erica and Lysithea and the 2 armors. This trap layout's honestly one of the more annoying parts of this, especially with the fortress in this tile, since it makes it very hard to set up a decent corner to tank with. At least one of the typical ones. I'm still planning to tank this, just it'll be a little bit different. And we're actually going to kind of disrespect this bolt trap. I'm not actually caring if this is even a 50 damage trap, since the only melee that should reach Dimitri this turn will be Erica. And Erica really shouldn't do much damage to him at all. And it's fake.
I will go.
Well, I guess this will be less impressive than I was hoping for.
By your will.
Then we'll just have
Niffle.
Fjorm swap Plumeria, which lets
I am
Ashera
the
jump
answer.
past her,
Why not?
dance Fjorm,
I'll protect
and
you.
then have her swap Plumeria again. From here, Erica should rally Lysithea, I think. Yep, and then get danced. And the Canto is why I wasn't opening these structures up at all, since if she cantoed forward, like she did here, she could access a lot more of our team and potentially threaten something other than Dimitri. As is, though, well, she's not going to have a good time here.
We will not lose.
And the rest of the team can't catch up, so they're just going to swap their way forwards and let us move again. The first turn went well enough. We cleared out their cavalry threats, and now we just have to deal with the cluster of melee in the middle here, without knocking all of them out before we reach these ether pots. And I think we can do that just by nudging Dimitri forward here. Oh, I found the other fake
I
trap.
seek a foe.
We'll move Thor forward 1 tile to keep him safe.
Your
And we'll
orders.
move him back down and clear his
Close your
debuffs,
eyes.
and dance him forward
Yes.
one more time to go ahead and knock out this Arden.
It's our chance to
We don't
prevail.
quite one-shot him, which is a little unfortunate, but that's okay.
I'm strong and I'm tough.
He does get to use Bonfire back on Dimitri, but it's not enough to actually let him survive this. And even without Vital Astra active at the start of this phase, Dimitri shouldn't have any problems tanking his way through the rest of it.
There is
So we'll
but
just
one
end this by
future.
moving Ashera forwards and saying go. He shouldn't have any problems one-shotting Seiros first, especially since she isn't even using Dragon Wall here. She can do a chunk of damage, but
We will not lose.
he does recover most of that after the fight. And, well, Hector doesn't get his weapon online at all, so Mira ends up moving in before him,
It's our chance to prevail.
and just donating another 6 hit points to Dimitri. Before Hector moves in and does exactly the same thing.
It's our chance to prevail. Your
And
orders.
just so we can style a little bit more while we're reaching this ether pot up in the corner, we're actually going to let Dimitri tank Thracer while we get there.
Yes.
So we're just going to move Ashera up here, and
Yes?
Fjorm here, which will keep everybody except Dimitri safe,
Speak.
and Elamine can move this way.
Oh, I'll do it.
Maria can move over here too, and Thor's just going to camp out over here to reach this pot later. Yep. Thracer's going to move over, attack Dimitri for a little bit of damage, but honestly all she does is top him back off.
Why
Then
not?
from here we can actually pick this up pretty easily by moving
There is
Plumeria
but
there,
one future.
and letting Ashera use guidance to pick up the first pot,
By your will.
or grabs the second one,
Yes.
and we'll let Dimitri close things out.
We will not lose.
That was another fun clear. It's good to see Vital Astra Dimitri doing so much work. This match will be an interesting rematch near the end of the week. I haven't actually seen very many Jumkeis in the wild since his Refine, and it's fun to see him actually using Cancel Affinity, since it pairs really well with having two colorless threats to avoid getting shut down by a Triangle Adept Raven Tome. His Refine is really strong though, I think, especially if you can get him a wall speed defense. It makes him very hard to avoid getting doubled by thanks to the guaranteed follow-up, and if he has enough speed compared to his opponent, he even gets to attack twice before they can counterattack. They also have a very neat setup here with his Deadeye and Times Pulse, since it's also backed up by two different sources of Infantry Pulse. And even when there's a potential Elemine on the enemy team, that guarantees that he'll always have a pre-charged Deadeye on after the first turn. Unless the opponents are running two Elemines, in which case, well, that's some nonsense. This leaf is also pretty tailored to trying to disarm Fjorms, thanks to having a guard and pulse smoke effect. If Fjorm can't counterattack him twice, then he'll always get to pulse smoke her Ice Mirror away, regardless of any breath effects, and if he does actually just get one-shotted, the guard effect usually shuts down her ability to recharge Ice Mirror, which lets Jumke move in and wipe her out with his pre-charged Deadeye. The Sarah in the corner is also pretty nicely set up to cleanse all of their major threats, including this Plumeria, who's got a lot of res stacking to enable her sabotage and make sure this Ground Orders doesn't get disabled by Elemine, and just making sure that your major threats don't have any attack or speed debuffs and also get +6 attack and speed on top makes them a lot more dangerous to handle. Unfortunately, Sarah herself is a little bit vulnerable to Elemine, even with the Fortress Res skill and the HP Res Seal, since she still only has 44 Res, and that's not hard for Elemine to false start. I do think I'm going to end up taking a couple of turns for this, though. I need a turn just to move into position, and after that, we should be able to get things started. We'll just have Elemine move up and continue false starting this Sarah, while Dimitri and Fjorm move over to continue getting their buffs. We'll just move everybody else over. And wait, the safety fence will shut down their first turn, so don't have to worry too much about that.
Your
And
orders.
from here, we'll just move Dimitri
Close your
forward and
eyes.
dancing.
I'll
Move him
comply.
in to block their enemy team off, while
Lady
Fjorm
Niffle.
can jump past Plumeria and keep him safe from ranged units. And then we'll just have Elemine nudge Plumeria over one tile. And test this gravity trap. Okay, that one's fake.
By your will.
Or we'll float forward and make sure that we're all getting buffed with the Candelabra and Breath
Yes.
effect, and Ashera is going to jump in here to make sure that everyone keeps their buffs for next turn. I think the first thing that happens is, yep, Jumke moves forward with his Deadeye.
Get out of here.
But unfortunately, he is attacking into Ice Mirror with it, and that doesn't really agree well with Deadeye. Seiros attacks directly into Dimitri's Vital Astra, and even with a Dragon Wall, she's not surviving
Don't let
this.
them retreat.
Idun might actually attack next. We'll see. Oh, she does. Good. That means we get to knock her out too. And then Fjorm will just handle
We will not lose.
the Leaf into Plumeria. Yep. Leaf really can't get much damage done here. And thanks to Thor, he can't shut down her recharge on Ice Mirror. Which means Plumeria attacks into it too, even though she can't do any damage anyway. And that just leaves Doom and Sarah.
I'll
And from here
comply.
we should be able to close things out pretty easily. We'll just have Dimitri move forward here and
There
let
is but
Ashera
one
open up
future.
this statue,
I will
which
go.
lets Elemine pick up our first Aether pot and move back out of Sarah's attack range. Then we'll
Close your
dance
eyes.
Ashera, let her pick up
Yes.
the second Aether pot,
I'll
move
protect
Fjorm
you.
over one
I
tile,
seek a foe.
and reposition her forwards to keep Dimitri safe from Sarah. Not that he should really need to be kept safe from Sarah, but it's a nice thought. Duma can do a lot of visible damage, but he can't survive this Vital Astra, and Dimitri would have been able to survive the special anyway. And then Sarah just attacks into Fjorm and gets shut down pretty handily. That was a fun one. This match is going to be a fun way to close out the week, and gives me a little bit of a chance to style a bit on this rematch. They've got a neat setup here, including a Bravon and a Lethality Yuri, who both get their specials pre-charged thanks to Quickened Pulse, Times Pulse, and one Infantry Pulse from this Fae. It does make this a little bit vulnerable to False Start from Elamine, since if you just False Start this column, a lot of the threat on this team just disappears, or even if you just False Start this Fae, which also helpfully turns off the Menace from Nino. This Nino's actually very impressive, and combines really nicely with this Fae, who provides her with a very easy access to plus 20 attack from her Iris Tome. Then of course there's a Harmonic Leaf in the back to be a bit of an annoyance and potentially lethal threat if he gets to attack the right target, and a nifty little ARD Def Res Seiros, who actually gets very bulky with this in her bonus week if you're not clearing up structures, and a Mirabilis. While the obviously correct move here would be to false start one of these two columns and then move in, we're not actually going to do that at all. We're going to let them have their pre-charged lethality and Moonbow, and let Fjorm and Dimitri tank their way through it. I'm going to take this first turn just to set up. There's not any immediate pressure on this team, even without a safety fence involved, so there's no real harm in it. They do threaten these extra tiles thanks to the extra movement that Alma and Yuri get, which can also be turned off by L9.
Yes.
But that's not going to be an issue for us here.
Close your eyes.
I'll comply.
I will go.
Since we're making sure we stay out of that range, and wait another turn. I didn't mention it earlier, but the sudden panic in Phase Kit is a really nice touch. At 76 hit points, it's very easy for her to apply that to basically anything on the enemy team. Which means that unless you're also running an Ashera, it can really mess around with any visible buffs you try to use. And we should be able to get things started from here, thanks to having that null panic on Ashera. We'll just move everybody forward a little bit.
Speak.
And since Elamine got gravitied, she's just going to wait in place here, and then
I'll
get
do
danced, which lets her nudge Plumeria into position, and Kanto into position herself, while Ashera moves forward. From here, I think Yuri should be the first one to attack. He does a solid chunk of damage to Fjorm, thanks to lethality,
Better accept it.
but he can't break through that ice mirror with it. And, well, she'll just take him down in one shot. Alm moves in next, but he can't sweep Dimitri.
No choice.
And all of the damage reduction Dimitri has going for him here means that Alm can't get much done. Nino moves in, and well, she's not finishing Fjorm off. And then Fae should just get danced, and nothing else should catch us here. With all Yuri and Nino out of the way, most of the team's threat is disabled, and all we need to do is make sure that we don't close this out before we reach these ether pots, just for completion's sake. And I think we can actually get away with some extra style while we do this. So we're going to nudge Dimitri onto this bolt trap and see if it's real. Oh, it's fake. Well, I guess that makes things much less interesting. If it was a 50 damage bolt trap, he would have potentially taken a beating, and we'd have had to dance Elamine and nudge him back forward. But from here, we
Yes.
should just be able to let him break this and say go. Everyone except Dimitri is being protected by Fjorm, so Leaf should always just end up getting himself walled out. And while Seiros can jump forward here to attack into Dimitri, attacking into Vital Astra,
Don't let them retreat.
as usual, is a recipe for disaster.
You must be purified.
Even though she does get to use this Iceberg, which is fun to see.
It's our chance to prevail.
Those defense skills are doing a lot of work for her. Yep. Leaf moves in next, and while his Pulse Smoke does mean that we're not going to actually get to recharge Vital Astra here, it doesn't really matter much, since all he's doing here is actually helping Dimitri heal back up. Before Faye moves in, and gets herself dismantled. Down she goes.
It's our chance to prevail.
Oof. Dimitri, that might have been a little overkill. And then from here we can just start cleaning things up. I'll nudge Dimitri onto this trap, and it's fake, so didn't need to worry about
Yes.
testing it anyway. And he can just bring down Leaf.
On my honor.
I am
Then
the
we'll
answer.
smite Elamine over,
Why not?
have Plumeria dance Dimitri, and make sure we're not breaking Mirabilla's this turn.
They will
And Thor
submit.
and
I'll
Dimitri
comply.
can pick up our first Aether Pot.
I'll protect you.
I think Mirabilla's is just going to start chasing Elamine here. Yep. Which is fine. And we'll just have to take one more turn to continue sneaking
Yes.
Elamine over towards this Aether Pot.
Oh, I'll do it.
And just dance Ashera. Let her
There
break
is
this,
but
so that we
one
don't have to
future.
worry about that
Your
next
orders.
turn. Move Dimitri over
Lady
here,
Niffle.
and say go. Yep, onto the gravity trap. That's okay.
I
We'll
will
just
go.
have Elamine pick up our Aether Pot,
I seek a foe.
or can flip Dimitri over,
I'll comply. Yes.
and we'll let him close out the week.
We will not lose.
It was honestly a really entertaining week. I wasn't entirely sure how well Vital Astra Dimitri would end up working in Aether raids, but turns out he can do a lot of work, especially when he has a Farsave backup, so that he only has to worry about the melee matchups. I do have a Discord channel if you'd like to hang out and chat. There's a link in the description, and there's also a Patreon link in there too if you'd like to help support the channel. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.